All righty. Back for another wonderful Wednesday with 1 Million Cups. Hope you all have your beverages. You had a little bit of extra time to get your beverages. You can see if you're looking at the gallery view, Eric's showing the 1MC app on his phone. So you can use that to check in if you've got it. Jolene, is there something wrong?
There's been times where I've tried to do that, and for whatever reason, like I can't get it to actually load properly. So there,
Okay.
but just so you know.
Okay, no worries.
I'm there now. It's stuck.
You're okay. Right. Cool. We don't make the tech, we just use it. So we can pass that along. But you can also like us on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, check us out on Meetup. You can always find our link at 1 million cups, 1millioncups.com/Seattle. And make sure you sign up for our email list so you get an email reminder to join us. So what are we about? You all know that we're here to share ideas and learn from each other. This whole entrepreneurial journey can often be a lonely one for many of us who are starting our own business or maybe are a solo entrepreneur. And so this is really our space where we can come together, learn from each other, and also kind of get a chance to step back and think about our business and from a different angle by learning about someone else's business and kind of what they're doing, and also learning from other people's feedback. The presenter's feedback is everybody's feedback, right? We all need to be doing these different things. So, and just to remember that we are about presentations and not pitches here. So typically our presentation is very story oriented, where we're not, asking for money or asking for funding. It's really about like, who are you? And that really helps to facilitate understanding the difference between connecting versus networking, really building this community, having friends that we connect with and reconnect with either here or outside. And we also are radically and intentionally inclusive. So our aim is to get representation from all across the Puget Sound area, because we know that this entrepreneurial journey is tough. So we want to make sure that people who may not have access to other or feel included as part of other entrepreneurial communities can feel included here. And we're part of a whole big nationwide effort to support entrepreneurs, educate entrepreneurs, and provide presentation opportunities. So there are sometimes people from all over the country who are joining us. I know Leif and Neil are in Tucson, I think you said, Leif? Yep. And then we often have people who visit us from all over the country. Like I mentioned, education, presentations, and connections is what we're about. Maybe one day we'll get back here to the collective where we've met in person in the past, but I hope we will always keep a little bit of this virtual experience, because I'm sure it's helpful for folks who are in different places. And just a reminder that you don't have to have all the answers and know exactly what you're doing in order to be here. There's no particular bar that you have to hit in order to show up and get support or even present. Many thanks to our community sponsors. Seattle Strong sponsors our coffee. Foreshadowing, we're going to be sending or providing some coffee to our community as a little gift towards the end of the year. And thanks to A Small Studio, who sponsors our meetup page, and Human Up, who sponsors our email campaigns. And these are our community volunteers. As you can see, there's 5 of us, and welcome, Tessa. If we didn't welcome you last week, I can't remember, but yay. We're super excited about having, new people, new ideas, and really helping to keep this community flourishing and growing. So today we've been chatting a little bit, maybe a little bit longer than we sometimes do, as we've been waiting for people to trickle in. And then we'll have our 6-minute presentation. And then afterwards, we'll do our 20 minutes of Q&A. So that can be an opportunity to give feedback, share an insight, and then we'll do more connecting via breakout rooms afterwards. Since we're such a small group, we also might just connect a little bit longer here, but we'll see how that goes. So remember to be a supportive listener, try to limit your distractions. I know that sometimes when I join from my computer, I can get distracted by wanting to dive into my own business things. So let's make sure we kind of all take a chance to be a supportive listener to Murgesh, and think about, what stands out. We really value your participation and your thoughts and your ideas. And so this will be a great opportunity for us to be able to give back to Murgesh. And with that said, Murgesh, I'm going to let you take it away. And just a note that Murgesh has presented before, so we're calling this a refill presentation, but I know that some things have shifted and changed for him, so I'm excited to learn how that has all changed. And one thing that we're trying to do is continue to help us all stay up with people's journeys across this entrepreneurial journey, because it's not just about how you start out, it's about how you keep going. So welcome, Murgesh.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys can see my screen? Okay, good. Very happy to be with all my favorite Wednesday morning people. So this is quite a habit now. I love it. I did present before, so I want to go through what's changed. It's more a refinement and a kind of a small pivot, if you will. So we are building a telehealth marketplace for rare diseases, primarily starting with ALS. This is where patients can easily meet the care providers that they need, and also get financial assistance for the care they would actually need as well. So why ALS? I'll start with ALS. It's kind of one of the markers of one of those rare diseases where an average patient lives for about 3 to 5 years after diagnosis. That's the lifespan. Multiple sclerosis could be 3 to 5 decades. This is 3 to 5 years. So it's kind of very similar neurological condition. So a person wakes up one morning and finds, they've got tightness in their muscles, or their slurred speech, or a foot drop, or something we may all have felt, a cramp. We may all have felt at one time or another. And unfortunately, that's usually the first sign of ALS. And nobody wants to diagnose it ALS. There's denial, obviously, on the patient's part as well. So they don't go to a primary physician for a little bit longer. The primary physician does not rule out everything else for quite a bit of time. Then they send them to a neurologist. A neurologist takes about 8 to 10 months to diagnose ALS. So that's about 17 months on average. So you spend 40% of your disease period, your lifespan left, untreated essentially. And which point of time, by the time you get your official diagnosis, typically 80% of your motor neurons could already be dead. And the generally accepted situation is that the motor neurons can be brought back. But new nerves can grow from existing motor neurons. That's the curative element that people are trying to work through. So there's no cure really. Because there's no cure, the traditional medical establishment, the person goes to the neurologist, who essentially tells them, go home and put your affairs in order, right? You got 9 months, 12 months, 24 months, whatever the time frame may be. So that's typically what happens. And you may have heard of, if you haven't heard of ALS, you've probably heard of Stephen Hawking. He was one of the rare ones who lived for multiple decades with ALS until he passed away more recently. But that's not the case with everybody. So we see an opportunity to help people get into treatment sooner through a telehealth platform that makes it easier for them to see a diverse set of providers faster. And we see, once they're diagnosed, the diverse set of providers can actually slow down the progression, we believe as well, if they get the right provider. Because of that, focused on building out this platform. And what this platform is, a one-stop shop where patients go in, or prospective patients, if you will, they can find a consolidated sort of education. First thing is education. Find a lot of health providers in a very simplified format, what they offer, what their opinions are on this thing, because everybody has different modalities on what this disease is and how they would treat it. And then be able to book an appointment directly there. If any of you try to book a primary care doctor appointment, you know how hard it is, right? Trying to get to specialists is even harder. Most of these people don't know what to do, where to go, and they're lurching from crisis to crisis. There's no planning at all in this disease period, right? Something happens next week you're not aware of, and then you're dealing with that, and something else happens. It happens quickly. So they can book an appointment with care providers and get financial assistance. We've got a whole crowdfunding engine built in with donors, sponsors, and friends and family. Everybody contributes to that care. So that is what we're building. What that looks at like is something like this, where they come onto the platform, they can book there will be patient navigators or patient advocates, thousands of them we expect, who've already been through this process, either as caregivers or former patients or current patients, who can actually make their calendar available and guide these patients through the process, what to expect. And of course, the care providers themselves span the entire, it's a multidisciplinary care, from neurologists to physical therapists, functional medicine doctors, et cetera. And we hope by January to have about 100 of these providers on the platform. We're making good progress. And the next thing that happens is clinical researchers. There are people trying to do clinical trials. Unfortunately, with most patients who are diagnosed too late, they're not eligible for clinical trials either. They get excluded. They want people who are early in the disease. So through our platform, we'll be driving more people to clinical research. They want patients. They'll be driving more people to clinical research. We'll also be providing them help to slow down the progression of their diseases by meeting with the right set of providers. How it works is very simple. You come to the site, you look through like any e-commerce site, the available providers, open a calendar, book an hour, and pay for it if you can. Otherwise, that whole campaign turns into we turn the checkout screen into a campaign where you can send it to multiple people to pay for it. Then you just visit your care provider. It's simple as that. From the financing perspective, when you create the checkout screen where you normally put in a credit card, lots of other people put in their credit cards. We ourselves have a foundation where we're bringing corporate sponsors to this mix as well. So they do matching grants, matching donations, and stuff like that. So every bill is matched. The difference between this and a GoFundMe, if you will, is this money goes directly to the care provider, not to the patient. They don't even see the money, essentially. So that's my story. I started out building a payment platform 2 years ago, mainly for dental, veterinary, auto repair, where people get surprise bills. Built about $100,000 in revenue business. It was growing nicely. Then my brother-in-law passed away from this disease. So kind of pivoted to telehealth, and we're building our caringals.com. Our goal is to have 100 patients and 1,000 bookings by the end of the year, shortly, or in the first quarter of next year, and then send more people to clinical trials than they're doing today. So that's my story. Yeah, that's the story I want to talk about. The team, that's me, my sister, that's her husband who died. And we were a wonderful, large team of volunteers, student interns, and patient advocates, and all these people helping me build out the two-sided marketplace. This is my team on the product side. So we're a fairly large team. They're trying to bring providers in, and providers have not said no. We're well known right now with the whole ALS community, from Mass General, Harvard, to John Hopkins, to MIT, to Google. They all know us now. So I think we have a good chance of making an impact given the momentum we have. So that's the goal. And as you know, it's not, there are 30 million people with other rare diseases just in the United States, not just ALS. So we think this platform will scale beyond that. So that's the end of my presentation.
Woo. Great job, Murgesh. Just a reminder, everyone, that you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question or offer some feedback to Murgesh. I just want to offer some really quick feedback to you, Murgesh, that since the first time you presented kind of your payment platform and sharing to today, I feel like your story has gotten so much clearer, and especially the way that you articulated how everything comes together and how it works, I think was really, really concise. And it's evidenced in the fact that you have all these awesome partnerships too, right? That you're able to effectively communicate your story, and that's really what it's all about. So just congrats on the progression here.
Thank you.
Leif or Neil.
Hold on, I'm unmuted now. Hi, Murgesh, great presentation. My question for you is this platform going to be then used, like you said, it could be other rare diseases, and you use the same technology and you apply it to other small hubs for other diseases? Is that what you're future state is?
Yeah, that's our goal, is to go across rare diseases. That's where the focus will be. But anywhere there's a patient community, but people are lost and need financial assistance, this platform can basically scale across. But yes.
So you'd have like a website for each one and like a hub where people can connect to things and be very
That is
different.
the goal. Yeah.
Okay.
So right now it's just ALS. We need to solve for ALS. Hopefully we'll make impact on the cure side as well by driving people earlier to treatment. So yeah, so that's the.
Got it. Thank you. Did you have a question?
I do. I have a question. Thank you. I don't know what your presentation looked like before, what your story was, but I have two questions. One of them is, how long did it take for you to create this presentation? Because as stated, it is so clear, it is so concise. Your storytelling behind it was just great. And I was wondering, from start to today, how long was this process for you?
Yeah, so at first I thought you asked me how long it took me to build the platform itself, but the presentation, the presentation was, it's a work in progress. It's never done, right? It's like the Japanese garden. You gotta keep throwing things out. Anything you can throw out, you gotta throw out. And when you can't throw out anything else, that's what remains is your thing. So I'd say I've had this set of slides for a few months now, a couple months at least. So we started telehealth only about 4 months ago, but we had the funding platform underneath that for a longer period of time. Yeah, it took me maybe a week or so to put this 6-7 slides together. I also won something called a Trails Prize from Cambia Grove. They're out of Seattle also, which is a palliative care. We're the top 5 finalists. I haven't won it. We're the 5 finalists. And the final is on November 9th. So I've been preparing for this.
Well, nice job. It was really, again, very clear and concise. And then my other question is, and if you covered this and I missed it, I'm sorry. How would someone with ALS, how do they find this? What's the marketing outreach, or how are you getting the word out to doctors or hospitals or what have you?
Yeah. So after my brother-in-law died, my sister started hosting. She collected bunch of other people who've had people pass away from ALS, brothers, fathers, etc. And those are the folks that you saw in the picture there. And they formed a group and started inviting some of the experts in the field to go to a presentation every other Wednesday. And that's grown into last Wednesday, I think there were 500 people attendance. And a lot of them are ALS patients. Given that about 5,000 people get diagnosed every year, and about 15,000 people are alive with ALS right now in the United States, getting 500 people on a call like that is pretty large. So this is a small, passionate community. We don't need to over-market it. Authenticity is more important than marketing. We're not trying to sell anything. We're building it as some sort of nonprofit. There's no charge. I'm not making any money of this thing. So it can become a business, I think, if we provide value eventually. But we've got other means of monetizing it. But so authenticity, the communities are small and passionate. It'll spread very quickly to the patient community. But having said that, you hit a very important point, which is we're trying to get to people who felt that little twitch. Do I have ALS? Now, the only way you're going to get people early diagnosis to pass the denial and all that type of stuff and give them their hazard score. That's what we're going to come up with. We're going to have some technology that will tell them you have a hazard score of 90. You better talk to for these reasons. We'll have some AI and all that type of stuff, right? We'll do a lot of interesting things, I think, there. The only way you do that is to market it through Google search. When people are searching, I got a tight muscle cramp. Do I have ALS? Then we'll have a lot of false positives. That's okay. That's a price you pay, right? That's a good thing. People may think they have it, then they don't have it. That's a good thing. But we'll catch the people who have it and send them into clinical trials and treatment sooner. So then we'll need.
That was going to be my question: is if you have, if there are maybe say 20 of the top symptoms, and somebody was to say, "Why did my foot drop?" Like, is that something that you guys are either going to invest in or to make sure that those searches link? Because that would seem like almost one of the most obvious ways to be able to get people to even know you exist.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think that is one of the main things. But unfortunately, ALS is not a disease that's diagnosed based on a symptom. It's a disease. It's a diagnosis of exclusion. If you don't have Parkinson's, you don't have multiple sclerosis, you don't have this. Okay, what's left is ALS, right? And then it's a horrific death. My brother-in-law actually, sorry to say this, but he shot himself. And he was driving. He was talking well. He made $1 million in consulting last year. But he just decided he didn't want to go into a wheelchair. And many people go into nothing. They get into machines to breathe for them, right? So, that's the story.
Well, impressive and great work. Thanks for sharing. Amazing.
Thank you.
For all you're doing. Tessa.
Hey, Murgesh, this is great. And I love to hear you present because I hear you speak to other people about their businesses and you're like super energetic and like here. And here you're just like, and here's my story. And what I like, everyone said it was a great presentation and I agree. And my question is like, I know you said like what you're wanting to achieve by the end of this quarter. And I'm wondering if there is like the kind of, because obviously I'm sensing now that it's not really about making money or like being, making this like about becoming a business for the sake of business, which makes me super happy. But what is that last thing that makes me know, what is your vision? Like, what is success when Caring ALS is working? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'll go a little bit off track from what I presented to tell you what that is. There are three aspects of this in all our lives: impact, innovation, commercialization, right? So commercialization is taking a backseat to impact and innovation for me on this particular journey, okay? But the fact I tell people I'm not doing it to the goodness of my heart because there's so much money in this thing. Billions of dollars are spent on this thing. An average ALS patient, the care costs $1.5 million, right? So it's a lot of money, except it's all misspent with no cure, no proofs, nothing, right? Mm-hmm. So when the value is established, the money will arrange itself. That will talk to itself. That's very Silicon Valley model anyways, right? So it fits in that vein. My vision for this is really, we figured out a way to start a nonprofit. So there are a lot of donors donor advised funds, a lot of donors, nonprofit donors. The amount of money that's available from donors in the United States is 100 times larger than all the venture capital put together. That's given out in grants that would drain these funds down, et cetera. We have a mechanism to basically take those philanthropic dollars, they get the tax write-off, and be able to circulate it into a for-profit corporation and return the grant back if the company does well. So they can recycle that money, they can keep putting into thing. So my goal is to get 100 other companies like mine funded through this process. That's my vision. Because I can't innovate everything. So we'll prove the prospect is okay, then we'll raise a big fund, and we'll let these donors, for their own reason, for impact reasons, to put money into work through some financial engineering into all these startups that are, there are a lot of people innovating, a lot of people have ideas. They don't know how to navigate the healthcare system. So we'll make them all template and have them innovate, essentially. So that's my vision.
That's really interesting side note, just because my husband was talking to me about how he is interested in impact investing and just how how much money is out there to put into, to give to the right people to innovate on things that will actually make a difference to people. And it is utilizing a financial system, not sitting within the not-for-profit alone. So anyway, I really think it's a fantastic idea, and I absolutely love the financial funding aspect of your side.
Now,
Thanks for
there's
sharing.
one more element if people find useful. This is a golden era because computing is going into biology, as you all have seen and known. Sometimes the doctors say, I'll give you an example. There's a Dr. Bedlack. He is at Duke. He's tracking all the reversals. There are people who reversed this disease. There are 48 of them so far. Okay, number 42 is in our team. Of the thousands, tens of thousands, 42. They're trying to figure out what was with these people. Did they eat bananas on Tuesdays, or did they go to witchcraft, or did they really take some medicine? What is it? Nobody knows, right? And the way he comes through his hypothesis is kind of random too. I'll go check this guy. What did he do? We think if we had all the data about all these people, we can drive him to check the right hypotheses because we see patterns in this care, right? What caused this thing in more detailed way? That's computing. That's AI and machine learning. So we think we're going to bring a lot of machine learning and computing to this space to make the biology go faster and better. Instead of letting the biologists trying to build the computing themselves. They're not very good at it, right? That's not their thing. So we'll bring a lot of entrepreneurs who can do computing well to marry with the biologists and make them much better focus on their stuff. I think this is a paradigm shift, literally. In 5 years, this could be completely different from the last 30 years. Completely, 100%. That's the impact.
And like you said, the applicability of this across so many different diseases and
7,000 rare diseases
and beyond disease as well. It could be applied in other areas of Anyway, so there's a lot of, I like the big vision behind that.
Thank you for the feedback.
Lots of awesome nuggets we can keep connecting about and learning about. Tiara, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi. I agree with everything everyone said. I had some of the same questions, Murgesh, but I don't want to go backwards too much, but I think you mentioned something about your previous platform where you would, if people had an outstanding bill that they couldn't pay, you would have this similar technology. I'm interested in that because I do credit consulting, and a lot of my clients, their credit is dinged because they had a medical bill that they thought their insurance covered, or that they simply just couldn't afford. So I'm really interested in that. If you can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, we should definitely talk. By the way, the new credit scores, the FICO scores, kind of FICO score 8.0, I believe, or maybe 5.0. It takes out the medical expenses out of your credit rating. That's what they're heading towards. Medical expenses crazy for that to ding your credit rating, so you can't buy a house or whatever. It's nuts, right? It's got nothing to do with nothing. And I talk about medical bills as, imagine you take a flight from Los Angeles to New York, you book a flight and you fly, and they send you the bill afterwards, after the flight. That's what medical care is today. None of us would fly ever, right? So
yeah, perfect description.
Yeah, so that's what we did with surprise bills. When people get surprise bills on anything, we were helping them split that bill up very easily with a touch of a button and have multiple contributors pay for it. Dental, auto repair, veterinary, those type of expenses. That's what I was doing before.
That's awesome. Was it pertaining to a certain disease or diagnosis?
This one is a disease. Last time I was just trying to, just the payment piece of it was just any large bill. Anytime there's a surprise bill, could be a funeral bill that they can't afford, whatever, right? That's what I was doing. But anyway, right now,
I see.
We're going through disease by disease. Yeah, and it'll also apply to what we call out-of-pocket expenses. So everything I told you was they'll book an appointment on our site and pay for it. It also applies for people who go to the traditional system. They pay through insurance and everything, then they get a bill. They can bring that bill back and raise money against it as well.
Cool. And I just want to say I love what you're doing. Thank you. We need more people like you. And it's more than amazing. I'm speechless.
Thank you.
Awesome. Zaki, you had a question.
Hey, Murgesh, great job. Loved it. The pacing was fantastic and really clear, just really, really well done. Recently, a friend of mine had a daughter with a rare liver and kidney disease. When she was trying to get into the research trials, her insurance wouldn't cover any of that, and the cost was going to be about $180,000 to $200,000 just to get this experimental treatment. So my question is, that's not, I don't think, normal, but is there any cost to the patient if they get involved with any of these ALS research treatment programs that you're looking at?
Well, the trials themselves are not supposed to charge in the United States money.
Okay.
A lot of people go overseas and pay, mortgage their house and do crazy things sometimes. But there isn't any fee. The biggest trial right now is for ALS is Mass General Harvard, called the Healy trial. And Dr. Mary Kutzkowitz, she's running the trial. We know her really well. So we give her $10,000 for every patient we send. That's what it costs her to run a trial at this point. But you're right. When it gets into experimental, that's the problem. Does this person even need that $180,000 trial? Will that be effective? A. On the other hand, in our platform, there's these type of trials. Then there's a chemist out of North Carolina who's a brilliant chemist. He's 78 years old, and he works with a biologist from the same university who's a brilliant biologist. And they came up with theory as what causes nerve cell death. And they have invented something called medical foods, right? It's like $100 a month or $200 a month. And they've caused one reversal, right? One guy is completely reversed. Now we, out of bands, we've sent them 3 other patients we've sent him. He had no idea how to meet these patients or anything like that. So we'll see if it works for him, right? So he's just as effective as the biggest, most expensive clinical trial. Like I tell people, that's why our platform, we're trying to thread the needle between quality of care and diversity of care. So every opinion is good on our platform. And many neurologists don't like the other people who are providing care on our platform because they don't believe the treatment will work. But we're not to judge that. There's no cure. Everybody's batting score is 0 right now. So that's why for the person, if she had a platform like this, where she could meet other people who had similar symptoms and they could give her their opinion, and then she could see all these different opinions of care, then maybe she can do a trade-off between a $180,000 trial versus a $500 something, which looks like it's equal success, equal backing, right? So that's what we're trying to do, is bring all this on.
Yeah, that's very cool. Just to fill in the rest of the story, she ended up getting someone paid for this out of their own pocket, some large donor, and she went into full remission from this stuff. So she was only the 12th person on the medicine. So it's a rare disease. I can't even tell you what it is because I don't remember the name. But anyways, the only other thing is I would love to hear you say, maybe take that every bi-weekly meeting, turn that into a podcast, make it available on your website, because that sounds like another way to get your word out there for people who miss your meetings. So but great job. Thanks so much for bringing this to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. I have one other thought. Did you attend the 1 Million Cups a little while back, where there was a platform called Given, GIVVN?
I think so.
And it's like using Facebook Messenger for nonprofits to get better reach donors. And I wonder if there'd be a really interesting connection, between the work that you're doing and their product, and if there'd be a way, for individuals to be able to contribute, or for you to not have to kind of reinvent the wheel on the patient, contributions, I guess, from others, right? That they could kind of crowdsource. I don't know, just an idea. May not come from anything, but you never know.
Yeah, I'll look at them.
Cool. Well, so at this point, we always ask our question, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you? Knowing that you're kind of more advanced on this particular idea and going for awesome stuff, I imagine that your answer to this question might be different than some of ours. So I'm curious what we can do.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, first, I think if you all can register, there's a site called everythingals.org. I think it'll give you a very different perspective on this. You'll enjoy it, even though you may not have any direct connection to ALS. Everythingals.org has a webinar that Eric just spoke about. Every 2 weeks, we bring experts in, and all the patients are there too. Several hundred patients, and the experts will make a presentation, usually. And that particular site also has all the past events, the videos, if you're interested in watching. That'd be great. If you watch that, you'll get an idea as to what we're trying to do. Secondarily, we are basically trying to recruit providers to the platform right now, because it's always a cold start problem. We're getting patients and providers. So we're focusing on the providers because we know patients are easier. So if you have anybody you want to refer to come to our webinars, send providers our way, anything to raise awareness, that'll be great.
Great. And so what can all of you do for the 1 Million Cups community? Well, bring a friend next week. It's always more fun when we have additional feedback and different opinions and connections. Yep, Leif literally traveled to bring his friend to 1 Million Cups this week. And, next week, we've got actually a double header next week. So that's pretty exciting. We've got Zucky is doing his refill presentation. And then we also have another community sponsor or community connection, I think is what we're calling them. These are those organizations out in our community, our local community here in Seattle, and learning about the services that they offer for entrepreneurs completely free. Sometimes there's costs, but usually completely free. So next week, we're going to be learning all about the library's services for businesses, which is ridiculous. They've got such cool stuff. Like, for example, right after this, I'm going to a trademark presentation, like learning about trademarking and all of that. So really cool stuff that they have. And if you're even remotely interested in presenting, please go and apply to present at 1millioncups.com/Seattle. Like you experienced here today with Murgesh's presentation, you can always come back if you've got a new idea or if you're pivoting and doing something different. We'd love to hear your story and know what's going on and see how we can help you. And just a friendly reminder that once you apply, you don't immediately get scheduled. We have a whole onboarding process to help support you and get you ready to present. So if you've got even that inkling, please go ahead and put your name in the system just so we can start you on that onboarding process. And with that, we're gonna go, oh, just kidding. If we could always use more support and help on the organizing team. So whether that's developing messages for our social media, helping people with their presentations, and also just helping to keep this community alive and well week to week. We could use your support if you've got ideas. Before we go to breakout rooms, I've got a quick little idea since we got a couple extra minutes. And so I'm gonna make a deviation from plan for a second. I'm curious, so since I shared at the beginning that, Murgesh's coaching is everybody's coaching, or, we can all benefit from the feedback of the presenter. What is one thing based off of our conversation today, based off of, what you saw, what you learned, that you can implement in your business? So I want you to take a second, think about that, and then I'd love for people to share, because the whole point of why we continue to meet together is to get inspired and also to learn.
This is a good question you ask here, Katie.
Thank you.
Ponder.
Yeah, Jolene.
I'll say, I think what's interesting is it actually comes from a comment that you made, which was kind of the evolution of, you present, but as you continue present and as you continue to go down the road, you can really refine, the ideas and articulate them in a clear manner. Yeah, I mean, I had no questions today because it was crystal clear of like what you're doing and how you're getting at it. And, I think that is a testament to one, continuing to do it, but two, the fact that you have such clarity around exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. So one thing we want to do is when we create this fund formation, a lot of entrepreneurs think they have to go for profit only and nonprofit is no money type of thing. It's a struggle. It's asking, that thing is a misnomer because there's so much money in the nonprofit, right? Like it's 100 times more than venture capital. We will share a lot of this fund formation documents, everything freely with everybody. If somebody else wants to do this, we just want to encourage more people to jump in. It brings more meaning to our life as well, right? We do some of these climate change, or it could be any area really. So.
Nice. Dave, did you have a learning you wanted to share that you're going to apply to your own business?
Sure. Thanks. First, Murgesh, thank you for a great presentation. I think one of the things that stood out for me, and this is maybe a bit selfish, but there was the comment about, I think grant funding exceeds is 100 times venture capital funding. That was an interesting statistic, I guess, or metric of some sort. I think it's because most of my clientele are in the nonprofit space, and so sometimes they're mostly the recipients of the grants, but in some cases they're the grant makers, and so that's I didn't know that it was 100 times venture capital, because venture capital seems to always be in the news.
The difference is venture capital has figured out how to invest in really early risky ideas, if you will,
Yeah.
right? And they've got the model of percentages, scale, and all that. Nonprofit, usually it's drained down. Nobody's worked through. The government gives grants, but these grants are given by a bunch of academics, so nothing about commercialization. So we need people who can commercialize getting into this field early when it's just a nascent idea, and help kind of make that idea become a little bit more, get it further along so the commercial guys can get interested. So that's where I want to play, really, right?
Yeah.
Instead of writing a paper, why don't you turn it into a product and see if that can become a commercial application, and somebody else can take it further and fund it and make it grow. So it's a highly risky phase when rational investors can get in, but nonprofit guys can get in.
Yeah, it's a similarity, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's a really interesting nugget in terms of thinking about how do we monetize our businesses? Like, are we thinking maybe in two tunnel vision, with where money can come from, right? And recognizing that there's a lot of possible ways that we can fund our idea so we can continue to do the good that we want to do. So,
or even articulating your idea. Are you talking about return on investment, or are you talking about impact first, right?
yes,
It's where you put the emphasis on, that matters too. And depending on who you go to. So.
Totally. Cool. We've got time for maybe one final takeaway that you're going to apply to your own business from our conversation today. You feel free to just unmute yourself and go for it.
Mine a little bit like Jolene, sorry, is like that you just keep working your pitch, and it's for me it's more like just put something down and then start there, and like I'll get to like looking that great one day, like, but like you just said, Murgesh, as well, like articulate what you're trying to do. And that was one. And the second one was I was amazed at like whenever I come to a 1 million cups, even if I'm like I have nothing to do with that like company or a business, or like I will have nothing to offer, I'll always like it'll just tweak my mind about like how I'm thinking about what I'm doing. So yeah, that's my takeaway.
Nice. Well, with that, I'm going to encourage everybody to continue that conversation in our breakout rooms. What have you learned today? How can you start to do this again, you know, kind of, or learn from today's conversation? And, you know, feel free to leave when you are full. And I'm going to get our breakout rooms started